for a further study on the issues that we have been talking about in the morning. I've been explaining that I'm going to do a study with you to find out the transition between two investigative judgment which was occurring in the Holy of Holies, where first Christ started with the investigative judgment of the dead and now prolongs to the investigative judgment of the living. And we are currently within the investigative judgment of the living. So we saw that in the morning, the three angels' messages were all pertaining to the investigative judgment of the dead. But Christ was supposed to finish off with the investigative judgment of those who will meet Christ without tasting death. And that transition point we saw before the establishment of the message in Washington, D.C., that it was in the prophecy of Revelation chapter 12. Remember in chapter 12? If you can go to Revelation chapter 12, you'll find that after the Christian church was being persecuted in Jerusalem, that's where the headquarters was, in Jerusalem. And that's when we saw Constantine invading the church. When the times and laws were being changed, it was in Jerusalem. So must we agree that the headquarters was in Jerusalem when Christ went? He set up the early Christian church, and the metropolitan city was Jerusalem before persecution. And then we saw after persecution, when the times and laws were invaded and pagan feasts were established, that let's read from Revelation chapter 12, that the woman who is the church was given eagle's wings. And I want the verse that says, then the woman was given eagle's wings. I think verse 13, somewhere there. So we see the woman being given eagle's wings to fly into the wilderness. So that's where we saw the woman settling in America. That's where the independence of America was in 1776. And it established that all the churches should come and establish their headquarters there. That's why the headquarters in that land from that time until today. But I was talking in the morning and saying, when the investigative judgment for the living occurs, the headquarters should have changed, because that was not the original point where Christ left this headquarters. It was left in Jerusalem, and it should be found back in Jerusalem. Now let's read from where the eagles wing, yeah?
And to the woman,
right,
were given 2 wings of a great eagle,
right,
that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time.
So the woman was to go to the wilderness, because the Holy Land is not called wilderness. It is the holy place, the Holy Land. It's the vine. But the wilderness is outside the Holy Land, where the headquarters was. So the woman, which is the church, which was being persecuted at that time, the time was being changed. Because of that persecution was settling in America, when the independence of America in 1776, that's when all the headquarters of the churches who were running away from persecution were established. Until today, they are there, right? So we see that in this verse, the woman was given eagle's wings to fly to that wilderness for how many? Times, and the dividing of time, which is the period of the Dark Ages, is time, times, and dividing of time, which is 3.5 years. To those who know prophecy, they will see that this is the 42 months, this is the 1,260 years, and this is the period from 538 AD to 1798 AD. The woman was supposed to be nourished there in the wilderness. But Christ should find the woman back, headquarters back where it was established by Christ before Christ went. We all know when Christ established the Christian church, the headquarters was in Jerusalem. But now, it was because of persecution. But there's no more persecution now. The woman should long gone back. Do you understand? So, it was for a time, times enough. So I'm saying, I promised you that we are going to study why the third angel's message was established in the wilderness. Right? And we all know it's America. It was in the wilderness after the persecution. It was established because it was judgment for the dead. Now when it goes into judgment for the living, it shouldn't be established there. It should be established where Christ had instituted the headquarters, which is Jerusalem. It went out because of persecution. It should go back. Now let's hear from the pen of inspiration what Sister White said about this. And we are going to read from Review and Herald from August 11, 1903 by H. White. The pen of inspiration should tell us that really, if we ran away from persecution from the headquarters, which was Jerusalem, which was established by the Master himself, should we really continue until Christ comes while the headquarters is in the wilderness, or should it be back? And if it's going to go back, how is it going to go back to the original place where it was designed by God? Now read from If after a time, the Lord says, right, move away from Washington, right, we must move. Listen, as Sister White said, the pen of inspiration was giving a warning that there will be announcement by God to move away from Washington. That's what that pen says. If after a time the Lord says move away from Washington, we must move. And go to when it says, when the Lord tells us. When the Lord tells us to move, we are to obey. We are to obey. However inconvenient and inconsistent such a command may seem to us. Meaning, the command could be inconvenient or inconsistent. Yeah? It's an inconvenient, inconsistent to some. So we might be somewhere where God says you have to move. Move, the headquarters should. There is a reason why the headquarters should move to the land, isn't it? Now, read again from Micah chapter 4, verse 1 to 2. We want to know why we should move. Why should we move the headquarters to go back to Jerusalem? And if not, if it is inconvenient for other people, but God will surely make sure the headquarters is moved, whether with the people who we should think should move, or God will raise other people to move to where He wants it to be. So Sister White 1903 had said it should, when the voice says move. So nobody will tell us whether the voice came or didn't come. But what we know is that He is about to come. And if He comes, He should find it there. Right. Verse 1. Right. Micah chapter 4, verse 1. Yeah? But in the last days, right, it shall come to pass. Listen, the mountain. Why Sister White says we have to move headquarters. Why is because when it was, the headquarters was in Washington, it was called the voice of God. In the time of Sister White, that was the voice of God. But now, we see in the last days, Sister White has warned that the headquarters should move. And when it moves, that's where the voice of God should come from. Right? But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, right, and people shall flow unto it. There are two things that have been we have to find out what a mountain is. Because here it says, in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain, which mountain is that? Let's go to Isaiah chapter 2 verse 2. What is a mountain?
And it shall come to pass in the last days.
It's still the same verse again, yeah?
That the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountain.
Now it's clearer. It says the mountain is the Lord's house. There you are, brethren. It's the Lord's headquarters. It shall be established where?
In the top of the mountains.
Which one is the top of the mountains? Now go back to Micah. Now we know that the mountain is called church. Now, Prophet Micah says, in the last days the church shall be established in the top of the hills. Right, read again, Micah.
But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains.
Right.
And it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. And many nations shall come and say, come and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, and to the house of God, of Jacob.
Right.
And he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion.
Right.
And the word of the Lord from Jerusalem.
Where is the headquarters in the last time? Established on the hills in the country of God in Jerusalem. Where was the headquarters there initially when Christ went to heaven? That's where the headquarters was. And the woman was given eagle's wings to the wilderness. Nourished only for the space of time when the woman was being persecuted. But after persecution, God wanted the woman to go back to the top of the mountain where Christ had left it. So that's why, Sister White, if the call comes for us to move, we have to move. That's what Sister White said in Review and Herald, August 11. So, but Micah is confirming when Christ comes, where is the headquarters? In Jerusalem, in the top of the mountain. And many people shall say, come, let us go and worship God. We want to quantify all that, isn't it? Now, go to Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 3. Want more evidence about that? Yeah?
For lo,
the
days come, saith the Lord,
right?
That I will bring again the captivity of my people
Why
Israel and
should
Judah.
the woman be established on top of the mountain in Jerusalem, on the hills of Jerusalem, like it was when Christ left, established there? But unfortunately, there was persecution. The woman was given eagle's wings, only to be nourished until the persecution is over. But in the last days, the woman should be back. Why? Because many nations will come to the woman. Is it? How do they come to this woman? Jeremiah is saying, lo. Yeah? Read again.
For lo, the days come, saith the Lord,
right?
That I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel and Judah.
Right?
Saith the Lord, I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it.
Are these people not in the land? And we know when they went to Babylon, after the 70 years, most of them didn't go back to the land. Just the 2 tribes only of Judah went there. But where is Israel right now? Let's find out from Ezekiel chapter 36. Where is Israel right now? Because it never went back to its country after Babylonian captivity. Now we are seeing a verse in Jeremiah saying, I will bring back the captivity. So it means they are still captivated somewhere, because they are not there in the Holy Land. It's only, even when Christ came the first time, it was only the 2 tribes which were there, the Jews. But Israel has never, we know there are 2, in the 12 tribes it was divided into 2, like 2 tribes belongs to Judah, and then 10 tribes belong to Israel. in the reign of Solomon. They've never lived as 12 tribes since that time until today. All we know, we have got from the pen of inspiration, we find 12 tribes in the sealing process. When there are 12 tribes of Israel, that's when we find them being 12. And they are now going to be living in the land as 12 tribes after the sealing process. But now, where are they? The pen of inspiration should say where these 10 tribes are. Now, Ezekiel chapter 36, start from 17.
Son of man, when the house of Israel dwelt in their own land,
right,
they defiled it by their own way and by their doings. Their way was before me as the uncleanness of a removed woman. Wherefore I poured my fury upon them for the blood that they had shed upon the land, and for their idols wherewith they had polluted it. And I scattered them among the heathen, and they were dispersed through the countries.
We've got a clue there where they are. They are not in the Holy Land. The tribes of Israel, the 10 tribes of Israel, are not in the Holy Land. They were scattered throughout the whole nations of the Gentile countries, of the heathen countries. That's where they are. This is the reason why God is saying, through Sister White, if God says we should move, we have to move. Why? Because the headquarters will be established where? In Jerusalem. Once it is established there, that's why God will make the gathering of the saints in the kingdom in Jerusalem. Why we don't believe there is a kingdom? It's because all this is all distorted. It's a mess already. We did not follow the pen of inspiration. That's why we do not believe there will be a second Exodus. The prophecies that show that the kingdom is going to be established are all not understood at all, because the very first thing was to relocate to Jerusalem. And after relocating to Jerusalem, and we set their headquarters there, the nations start flowing to it. This is what was supposed to happen when Sister White was still away, before she died. Right? So here, we are told they were scattered. And what?
And I scattered them among the heathen, and they were dispersed through the countries. According to their way and according to their doings, I judged them.
Right.
And when they entered upon the heathen, whither they went,
right,
they profaned my holy name.
Right.
When they said to them, these are the people of the Lord, and are gone forth out of his land.
Only when you read Ezekiel chapter 20, that one is, don't go to it. Chapter 20, that's where you know what exactly was their crime. Their crime was they did not walk in his statutes. It's there in chapter 20, verse 11, and also verse 18 to 20. Verse 11 to 12, you read it on your own. Then you find their crime was they did not walk in God's statutes. And what is the statutes? I told you they are the feasts. These are the things that were changed in the Dark Ages. So now, when we agree to keep the feasts, God now sends us back to the headquarters. So why would you be going 3 times a year to Jerusalem to keep the feast? That's where the headquarters is. Why would you be going to keep the feast there? It is prescribed in Micah chapter 4 that many people will flock there, for the law of God will come from Zion. Do you understand? It's now coming from the proper headquarters. That's where the law of God should be coming in the last days, according to Micah chapter 4, verse 1, and then Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2. It says, in the top of the hills. So here, when they were scattered throughout the whole nations, but God promised something. What did he promise?
Exactly 36.
36, yeah.
But I had pity for mine holy name.
He had pity for them after scattering them. Yeah?
But I had pity for mine holy name.
Yes.
Which the house of Israel had profaned among the heathen, whither they went.
Right.
Therefore say unto the house of Israel,
Right.
Thus saith the Lord God,
Right.
I do not this for your sakes,
Right.
O house of Israel,
Right.
but for mine holy name's sake,
Right.
which you have profaned.
What is he about to do? Next verse.
And I will sanctify my great name,
Right.
which was profaned among the heathen.
How will he sanctify his name?
Which ye have profaned in the midst of them.
Right.
And the heathen shall know that I am the Lord, saith the Lord God.
Right.
When I shall be sanctified in you before thine eyes.
Mm-hmm.
For I will take you
Right.
from among the heathen,
Right.
and gather you out of all countries,
Right.
and will bring you into your own land.
Right. What is it that he's going to do? He will do that in front of the heathen. Take all that he has scattered. Now they are descendants. They are not those fathers that were scattered. They are descendants. They are now being taken. How will they be taken back to their country? By the word of keeping the feasts. This will only be received by those who came as descendants of those who were scattered. For someone will say, I'm not one of the descendants. I'm not what? But who knows who is the descendant? We will only know when you adhere to the word of God, of the statutes, that because the statutes are the ones, they did not keep the statutes. So that's why they were scattered. The Bible said so. They did not walk in his statutes. So the statutes we identified in the morning, we said, these are the feasts. So, since they did not walk in his feast, what is he going to do in the last days? He will take them back from the heathen countries, back to their land, to start keeping the feasts. This is what, because they are now healing where the crime was. They are healing where their fathers had committed a crime. So they come by responding to the feasts. They come and heal up the crime. You understand? So what is it? I will do this not for their sake, but for my holy name's sake. I will sanctify my name. But God said he will sanctify his name by taking the people to live in his holy land. By taking the headquarters back. Did you hear that? So whoever will be there to respond on that call will be responding on the call of establishment of God's headquarters back to the land where it came from. Read again, finish that chapter.
For I will take you from among the heathen,
right,
and gather you out of all countries, and will bring you into your own land.
Right.
Then will I sprinkle clean water upon
then
you.
We are due to receive the latter rain. There is no way we will receive the latter rain when we are outside there. Don't fool yourself. Because when it was received initially as a former rain, it was in Jerusalem. The headquarters was in Jerusalem. And when it is received as a latter rain to conclude the gospel commission, it will still be in Jerusalem. But how? By people taken back 3 times a year to keep the feasts. And that will make the latter rain come. And they do exactly what the Galileans did on the day of Pentecost. It will be the same. It will be same place, same time, same feast. It wasn't a feast when the latter rain came. So this time, would the latter rain come when it is not a feast? I've never seen it in the Bible. It wasn't a feast. Go to Acts chapter 2. It was a feast of Pentecost. And where were they? In the headquarters. Acts chapter 2 verse 1. Yeah?
And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place.
They were in one place. How did they get there? They were going to keep that feast, isn't it? From different countries, they went to Jerusalem, where the headquarters was. Right?
And suddenly, there came a sound from heaven, as a rushing mighty wind.
Right?
And it filled all the house where they were sitting.
Right?
And there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as fire.
Right. So it was in Jerusalem. It was on a day called the Day of Pentecost. It was a feast of Pentecost. The Day of Pentecost comes 50 days after the Passover. So you see, it will be among us those who start keeping the feast are starting to establish the headquarters in Jerusalem. This response of what the pen of inspiration said, when God says move headquarters, you will move. Let us respond. This is in response to the call to say move the headquarters. And that's why the latter rain, the former rain, came in Jerusalem. Why did it come in Jerusalem? Because that's where the headquarters was. And it was on a feast. But we can enjoy while we are still established outside Jerusalem, in the wilderness, as Revelation chapter 12 said. Enjoy yourself without keeping feasts. But you cannot talk about the headquarters of God without keeping feast. You will have to keep the feast to go back to the headquarters. For those who were there, they were keeping feast. Paul and Peter and the disciples, well after the cross, they were keeping. It was on a day of Pentecost that the former rain came. You know, the weeks from Passover to Pentecost are 7 weeks, and they're saying they are called weeks. It's called a Feast of Weeks, Day of Pentecost. A Feast of Weeks, meaning the 7 weeks from Passover. Now go to Jeremiah chapter 5, verse 24. 5 verse 24. Yeah.
Neither say they in their heart,
right?
Let us now fear the Lord our God.
Do you hear? There's a portion of people. I told you they are wise and foolish virgins. The foolish virgins, what do they say? They neither say, let us fear God. Who what?
The Lord our God.
Yeah.
That giveth rain,
right,
both the former and the latter in their season.
Right.
He reserveth unto us the appointed weeks of the harvest.
Which are the weeks of harvest? The 7 weeks from Passover to Day of Pentecost are called weeks of harvest. So God reserves these weeks of harvest for the former and the latter rain. So he says neither fear. So meaning Jeremiah is only talking about they don't want to fear God by keeping the feast. How do they know then the day of Pentecost, the day of the latter rain? Because God has reserved those 7 weeks, or the weeks of Pentecost, or weeks of harvest for the Pentecost. So the day of Pentecost is when we see Christ with the 144,000 standing on Mount Zion. It is on a week of harvest. It's on the day of Pentecost. Why would the Lamb be standing with the 144,000 on Mount Zion? Because the headquarters is established in Zion, in Jerusalem, in the last days. Do you understand how it is? And let's go to Jeremiah chapter 31. We want to study this and expound on it to see where we should be in the last days. For our prophecies should indicate what our position in the last days, the position of our headquarters, the position of where everything should come up from the Bible. It shouldn't be in whispered tones. All right. 31 verse 1.
At the same time,
right,
said the Lord, will I be the God of all the families of Israel,
right,
and they shall be my people.
When? At the same time, when he says, I will gather, I will bring my captivity back to their land. How would God bring his people from all nations when the headquarters is not there in Jerusalem? The very first thing is to establish the headquarters in Jerusalem, not outside in the wilderness, but in Jerusalem. And then all nations come to gather at the headquarters. That's how the kingdom is going to be established. And then here, Jeremiah chapter 31 verse 1, it says, we saw that initially in the previous verse, in chapter 30. That's Jeremiah we are talking about. Chapter 30 verse 3, he said, for lo, the days come. So they were still future to Jeremiah. The days come, said the Lord, that I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel and Judah, said the Lord, and I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. You remember the land was given to Abraham. Abraham was given a land, and the land was supposed to be for him and his children, who were counted like stars, who were counted like the sand of the sea. But when Abraham died, he never stayed there with his children. So when is it? Shall we go to heaven before that promise of the land, which was promised to Abraham, has not been fulfilled? Never. Our God is a promise-fulfilling God. He will never say something and not fulfill. So now, this is the time to fulfill the promise. In Genesis chapter 17, that's where we find that promise of the land. Read the whole chapter of Genesis chapter 17, you find one, there were two covenants there. One, the covenant of circumcision was there. The other covenant was the covenant of the land, that he should live there in Canaan with the whole tribe of Israel, as 12 tribes, Judah and Israel, in the land. And it should be fulfilled in our days. That's why we find the 144,000 all coming from the 12 tribes. Why should they come from the 12 tribes? He now wants to fulfill the covenant of the land. That's why it should be from 12 tribes. Otherwise, he could have sealed any number or from any tribes. But he says from the 12 tribes, all the 144,000 in Revelation chapter 7, they come from the 12 tribes. Why? He needs them to go back to their headquarters. And the headquarters where Christ established before he left and went to heaven. Other headquarters which have been there, yes, thank God for that. Thank God for having them, but their time is expired. The time for the headquarters which will be there in the kingdom is Jerusalem. And Sister White said, before the coming of Christ, we could have been called back again to establish it. He says, if they call us to change, we have to go. Now, in Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 1, you said, at the same time, read again.
At the same time, said the Lord, will I be the God of all the families of Israel.
All them that are settled after he has taken the captivity back, all the families that are there, he will now be the God. Yeah, and
they shall be my people.
Right.
Thus saith the Lord, the people which were left of the sword found grace in the wilderness, even Israel, when I went to cause him to rest. The Lord hath appeared of old unto me, saying, Here.
Go to verse 4.
Again, I will build thee, and thou shalt be built.
He says he will be. And the people, there are people who have been talking about, when Sister White was talking about the Zionist movement in early writing, page 75, and saying Jerusalem shall never be built again. He actually says old Jerusalem shall never be built again. But she does not say new Jerusalem will never be built. He says old. It's there in early writing, page 75. Old Jerusalem will never be built again. There was a Zionist movement at that time, which had started to go and Christianize the Jews at that time when Sister White was still awake. And this Zionist movement, if you want to, I will give you all the quotation. They were trying to Christianize the Jews, to make them join the Christian churches, so that they started to acknowledge Christ. But it was not that time. There is a time they are supposed to do that, which is when now we keep both the Sabbath and the feast. They will understand. They wouldn't understand the Zionist movement to keep only the Sabbath and leave. If you go to any Jew now and say, leave these feasts, do not keep them, they won't understand you, because they know these are perpetual. This is a perpetual covenant of keeping feasts. But if you wanted to Christianize them in the time of the Zionist movement and take them and say, leave the feast and only keep the Sabbath, you are talking of something strange to them. And Sister White was raised at that time to say, it will never be built again. You are going to Old Jerusalem. But there is two sections, old and new. New Jerusalem is being built. That's where the kingdom will be. Only when you are there, that's when you see which one is old and which one is new. And these promises are being fulfilled in New Jerusalem, not in old. Old Jerusalem, for sure. She said it's never going to be built again because of this Zionist movement was going to build, and Sister White admonished them, no, it's not the time now to be taking people there. The time she knew it was going to be there now when she says, if we are now being called to move, let's move. Let's change headquarters. This is the time, she says, at the end. When there are people now who believe the Sabbath, as well as what the Jews believe, which is what? The feasts. Then they will listen to you. They can't listen to you when you are saying, drop some of the things that they know were given to their father and as a descendant of Abraham, and it should be kept in all generations as a perpetual covenant. And you tell them to drop that, it will be Greek to them. But when now you believe in Christ and go to them and say, we believe in Christ, and also believe in the feast, they start to nod and say, I think what you mean is correct. It surely should be the Christ that was nailed to the cross. They start believing it. And scripture says they will believe when we fulfill the whole gospel commission. They will start to believe. But not at that time of the Zionist movement when Sister White was raised to say all Jerusalem will never be built, because they were now into the habit of taking and going to Christianize the Jews, and she had to stop them. But now she has given a warning that we will change our headquarters. When the time comes to change headquarters, let us change the headquarters. And the headquarters will be changed only by those who will submit to God, to keep the statutes as it was with Paul and Peter and all the Christian churches, early Christian churches at the beginning. And they keep all the laws that are allowed, because that land is built on covenant. Because the covenant was given to Abraham for the land. What? So that they keep the statutes. Abraham was a statute keeper. Let's check in Genesis chapter 26. Abraham was you cannot claim to follow Abraham when you don't keep these feasts. Chapter 26 verse 5, yeah?
Because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge,
right?
My commandments, my statutes, and my laws.
What did Abraham do? Kept commandments, statutes, and all the laws. So the statutes were still there with Abraham. And now, how can I claim to be Abraham's seed when I do not keep what Abraham did? And we are seeing in the last days, God is saying, I will take all my captivity. They will come to my country. They will keep these statutes. These are the feasts. He was taking them for that. He is taking them so that they fulfill all these covenant promises. Go back to Jeremiah 31 verse 4.
Again, I will build thee.
He will build.
And thou shalt be built, O
now,
Virgin of Israel.
You see, where is he going to build? He's not saying I'll build heaven. I'll build what? Israel. So if you tell people Jerusalem will never be built again, you don't understand what exactly Sister White was saying. Because she did not mean what you say. She might have used the same words, but meaning something. But here, the Bible itself says, where after the captivity is taken, then he is the one who will build Israel. It's that, again, I will build thee. And thou shalt be built, O Virgin of Israel. Thou shalt again be adorned with the tabrets. And thou shalt go forth in the dances of them that make merry. He will build it again. He will build it again. And go again to Ezekiel 36, the one that we are reading, verse 24. Verse 24.
For I will take you from among the heathen.
We have heard him saying that. How is he going to build it? I will take you from among the heathen. And what?
And gather you out of all countries.
All countries.
And will bring you into your own land.
Right. He's not gathering us into heaven yet, but into Jerusalem itself. I will gather you out of the countries. And what? And verse
then,
35.
25.
35.
And they shall say,
this
land that was desolate is become like the Garden of Eden.
Is it the same land where Adam and Eve were? East of that land, that's where you find the Garden of Eden. How was the Garden of Eden demolished? How? Because they sinned. Adam and Eve sinned and they lost the glory. And when Christ comes, he's going to take back the glory to Adam, to the Garden of Eden, which is now Israel. And people will be saying, that land now is become the Garden of Eden. So he has replaced the glory which was there in Eden again. And this is fulfilled by the children of Abraham. And what?
And they shall say, this land that was desolate is become like the Garden of Eden. And the waste and desolate and ruined cities are become fenced and are inhabited. Then the heathen that are left round about you shall know that I, the Lord, built the ruined places.
Do you see that expression alone? It shows you that the heathen will be still there. They will be left around to watch that. Because it rightly says the heathen left around, meaning they will be there. They will see. If someone will say, oh, that's not what we teach. No, it's nothing to do with what you teach. It's what the Bible is saying right now. What does the Bible say? Unless you say it means something else, then tell us. Give us no private interpretation. Give us what you think. If you don't have any interpretation, take what the Bible is saying. After taking us back, this is the reason why he is sealing the 144,000. These are his servants that he is going to use to take all the people after because they come from the house of God. And after that, they are the ones going to take all the heathens that are also submissive to the law of God. They will be gathered into Jerusalem. And all them that are gathered into Jerusalem, they join in the forces of Israel and automatically become Israel. This is the gathering point. And then here, then the heathen that are left around about you shall know that I, the Lord, built the ruined places. What ruined places? It's ruins already. It is ruined. You say it's never going to be built, but God is going to build the ruined places. All those ruined places is going to build by accommodating even the heathen forces into Israel. When it starts with the church first, there we have seen he's standing with 144,000 on Mount Zion. Why on Mount Zion? That's the metropolitan city, the headquarters. Now it has moved there. And why are they there? They have been sealed. They have been sealed. And where have the rest gone? We know in Ezekiel 9 he says, go through the city, smite all those without the seal. So where is the rest? Where is anyone who is not without a seal? Where are they right now? Where are they? We saw Ezekiel 9 has been fulfilled already. Slay utterly young and old and what? It's the angels doing that. It is on one of the Passovers. And then how the 144,000 are left because they have the seal. What is the seal? Those three seals we talked about in early writing, page 15. God, New Jerusalem, and a glorious star containing Jesus' new name. Those that are put as an antitype of the blood which was put on the doors of the Israelites when they walked out of Egypt. Those are the seals. And when that sealing is the angels come to destroy, like they did in Egypt. Destroyed all the firstborns. And here they come anyone in the house of God who has been found dilly-dallying, in stupor, as they said, or lethargic, and continue to be in lethargy, that's the bus which was coming to step on the donkey. And then after that, the 144,000 are sent by Christ from Mount Zion after receiving the latter rain back to the heathen countries to collect all the Gentile forces. They come. That's why we say in Matthew chapter 25, standing in front of Christ, when Christ has come, he is stepping on the ground this time. He's not up in the clouds. He comes to step out. Let's read it. Matthew chapter 25, verse 31. He steps on the ground to return back the glory back to the Garden of Eden, which was taken from Adam and Eve.
When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory.
Right.
And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another as a shepherd.
This is the coming which we are expecting now. Before that coming in the clouds, this is where he comes on the throne of glory to replace the glory which was taken from Adam and Eve, to replace the Eden which was taken from Adam and Eve. This is now where everybody is crowded in front of. How did these people come in front of Christ? Because the 144,000, the servants, have taken them in from all countries, heathen countries. These are no longer the house of God. These are now the Gentile forces. Now let's see them being taken, because they are going to come in front of Christ. And he is now busy taking those. Now he is taking the goats to the left, the sheep to the right. So you see those goats are the wicked. They still have access to coming to talk to Christ. But they don't do that when he comes on the clouds. In the clouds, they have no dialogue with Christ because they are killed. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 8 says, they are destroyed by the brightness of Christ coming. So they don't have any dialogue with him. But here when he's coming now in the kingdom, they have dialogue with him. Because they're asking him, where did we see you hungry and we never fed you? Where did you... They're still talking and Christ is answering them back. That's the time which is represented by the 10 virgins, when some go in and some are left out. And those who are left out, they ask to go in, and he has a dialogue with them to say, I know you not out. But not when he is coming in the cloud, he has no dialogue. Now let's see how they have been collected from all countries. Go to Zechariah chapter 14 or chapter 8. Start with chapter 8 and start from verse 20.
Thus saith the Lord of hosts, it shall yet come to pass that there shall come people and the inhabitants of many cities. And the inhabitants of one city shall go to another, saying, Let us go speedily to pray before the Lord.
You see, the Lord will be there. And they will now be inviting each other, one city to another city. Let's go, because the 144,000 now are working as servants, because they were sealed to be servants in Revelation 7. These all 144,000 sealed as servants. Now they are doing their job that they were sealed for. Taking one city to another city, they say, let's go speedily and worship in front of God. And what happened?
And the inhabitants of one city shall go to another, saying, Let us go speedily to pray before the Lord, and to seek the Lord of hosts. I will go also.
Listen to the reply. They don't say, I have no money. They don't say, where do we find the money? They say, I will go also. You see when this gospel goes to the heathen outside the church, there is no argument. It's just, I will go also. And what?
Yeah, many nations, many people and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem.
That's where the headquarters is. The headquarters has been established where it's supposed to be. Where Sister White said, if we are called to go back, to change, to move headquarters, let us obey. She said that. And now it's back. Review and Herald is not joking. It's telling us the truth. If we are told to move headquarters, let's go, because that's where the kingdom is established. They are going speedily to worship before God. I will go also.
Yeah, many people and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem,
right?
And to pray before the Lord.
Right?
Thus saith
Are
the
they
Lord
coming
of
to
hosts.
pray in heaven or in a church somewhere? The Bible clearly says in Jerusalem.
Thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold of out of all languages of the nations, even shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that the Lord God is with you.
It's the Jew now is the one for 4,000. It's been sent there, and now they say, we will go. They hold the skirt, 10 of them, we will go with you. We heard that he is with you. We will go with you. It's the gathering time, and this is how these people are gathered in front of Christ. When Christ is there with the throne of glory, he has established the kingdom. So we have got a lot of interesting things coming on our way before we hop into that cloud. We have the gathering where we sing, he will gather, yeah? The saying, the gems for the kingdom. And when in Matthew 25 they were being separated, some were, the sheep were put on the right, and they were saying, enter where? In the kingdom. That's where the kingdom is established. Now, go back to Ezekiel 36. Verse 36.
Then the heathen that are left round about you shall know that I, the Lord, build the ruined places.
Right.
And plant that was desolate. And the plant that was desolate, I, the Lord, have spoken it. And
so
I will
it's
do
now
it.
like a beautiful Eden again. So those who say Jerusalem will never be built again, listen, it's now like Eden, planted, full of amazement. But that's a lot of years before hopping in the cloud. Because they still got, this job has got to be done when Christ is there. Like they were saying, let's go speedily and pray before the Lord. I will go also. Yeah? And some are given transport. Go to Isaiah chapter 66. Start verse 18.
For I know their works and their thoughts.
Right?
It shall come that I will gather all nations and tongues, and they shall
Still,
come
Isaiah
and
is
see
talking
my
about
glory.
the same thing that Jeremiah is talking about. He will gather all nations. They come to see the Lord.
For I know their works and their thoughts. It shall come to pass that I will gather all nations and tongues, and they shall come and see my glory.
Right?
And I will set a sign among them.
So we saw that when he comes with the throne of glory. So he's setting everyone to come and see his glory. He will set a sign. The sign is the sealing process is going on right now. 3 seals: God, New Jerusalem, a glorious star containing Jesus' new name. That's a passport for you, for the sign that is being set by Christ. We saw that the fourth angel is coming. It's a mighty angel. It's putting these 3 seals, isn't it? And now we are gathered. We are in Jerusalem to see the throne of glory. And what else?
And I will set a sign among them, and I will send those that escape of them unto the nations.
We said 144,000 have escaped the slaughter. Now they are being sent back now to the Gentile countries. Where?
To Tarshish,
Pool,
Lud, that draw the bow, to Tubal, to Javan, to the isles afar off, that have not heard of my fame.
So these are the names of the countries in their original names before these independents changed the names. Yeah? And what would they do there?
To the isles afar off, that have not heard of my fame, neither have they seen my glory.
Right.
And they shall declare my glory among the Gentiles.
So it's the gospel going via 144,000 to the Gentiles. Now it's being extended to the Gentiles. You see, we are concentrating on these efforts outside the church. They have their time. They still got a long probation. Ours is very, very short. For us to get the seal, it's very short. It's about to close. But where is our eye? Out there. But they have their time. The 144,000 now are being sent to them, to the Gentile countries, to collect them. And what happens?
And they shall bring all your brethren for an offering unto the Lord, out of all the nations, upon horses, upon chariots.
Look at the transport. Horses,
chariots, in litters, upon mules, and upon swift beasts,
upon
to aeroplanes. My holy mountain Jerusalem.
All aeroplanes are swift beasts. Where are they being carried to? To my holy mountain Jerusalem. They are not being carried to the cloud yet, but to Jerusalem. You understand? Why to Jerusalem? That's where the metropolitan city is now. The headquarters has moved to Jerusalem. Yeah? And let's go to another verse in Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 24. To those who still want a lot of evidence. You know, you can read the whole Bible, you find all the evidences are talking about this special event.
The fierce anger of the Lord shall not return.
Right?
Unto the fierce anger of the Lord shall not return until he have done it, and until he have performed the intents of his heart.
Do you hear that? This special work of gathering people into the kingdom is what is in the heart of God. That's why you saw all the prophets who were preaching. Even when Christ himself came, all the parables are for the kingdom. All the prophets are the day of the Lord is coming, the day of the establishment of the kingdom. Even Sister White, someone was asking you, is Sister White going to be awake? Yes, because all those who are in the special resurrection, Sister White is there as well. That's why she was saying, we were together we saw Brother Enoch in one of the planets, and we were promised we will go there with the 144,000 in the time of the kingdom. That's when they will be given time to visit the other planets which had not sinned, which did not take the tree of life. It will be very interesting. All the prophets, including Christ himself, that's where their focus was. Their focus was on the kingdom, and what more should it be to those who are living in the time the kingdom is being established. Is about to be established. When Christ came here, he just came. Each time he's talking about the kingdom, all the parables, everything. And Jeremiah, you can see now we've been reading Isaiah, and all of them, they were talking about this special event. But those who are living in the time this special event is going to be established, they are in a stupor or in lethargy, like what the spirit of prophet said. Right, go again to another verse. I need another verse. It talks about. I love the verse in Isaiah chapter 11. It shows how we are going to. Chapter 11. If you start from verse 15, how are we going to travel? Because we remember Moses, when they were coming from Egypt, when they were on the Red Sea, they had to part that sea. He was told to, with the rod, to hit the river, the sea, the waters, and they opened up and they walked on dry shore or dry land. Is that going to happen to us? Go to verse 11.
Verse 11. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people.
Right.
Which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Patros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the isles, and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations.
So it's the
and
sealing.
Shall assemble.
It's the sealing. That's the ensign.
And shall assemble the outcasts of Israel,
right,
and gather together the dispersed of Judah.
So these were dispersed when we saw it in Ezekiel chapter 36. They were dispersed all over the world, isn't it? He will gather them and what?
And gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. But they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines towards the west, They shall spoil them of the east together. They shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them. And the Lord shall utterly destroy the tongue of the Egyptian sea,
right?
And with his mighty wind shall he shake his hand over the river,
right?
And shall smite it in the 7 streams, and make men over dry shod.
So men will walk over dry land like they did when they came out of Egypt. Now it's 7 streams, meaning it's complete. Wherever you meet the waters to cross, you just like what Moses did, and the waters part. So it will be very interesting again. That Exodus was a type, and now we have an antitype. Go to Jeremiah chapter 23, you see. In chapter 23, start from verse 5 to 7.
Behold.
No. I went from verse 7. Okay.
Therefore, behold, the days come,
right?
saith the Lord,
right?
That they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of Egypt. But the Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country and from all countries whither I had driven them. Right? And they shall dwell in their own land.
Right. So, when they were coming out of Egypt, right now, when you call them, they say, but the Lord liveth, who brought us from Egypt, from one country. That's what they know, isn't it? But after this incident, what will you be saying? The Lord liveth, who brought us from the countries of the north, on the south, and the east, and everywhere. It's no longer one country, Egypt. It's all countries to come and worship God in Israel. Surely the kingdom is going to be established. Let us prepare for this beautiful prophecy to be fulfilled in our time, to be found on the right side with God in the kingdom. May God bless this lesson.